Hello every pony, and here I am again, Visual Pony, bringing you the 11th chapter of Children of the Night. I'm very sorry for bringing this out so late, but as I told you in one of my other videos, I am working on another project right now, recording the chapters, and well, I'm having good progress here, but it will still take a while, so I will try to read the 3 newest chapters of my own story, and I hope you enjoy this. O cursed alicorn, for war you are born. Every pony's heart will ache from destruction in your wake. Wounds you deal will never heal. Burn the land with your minions' band. Relentless you fight on, until you die or the fight is won. Begone, dark creature, no pony likes your feature. Kill you we will, for you do only ill. Run for your life, for it is a peace we strive. Celestia awoke damp from sweat. It had been hundreds of years since she had dreamed of her mother's old nursery rhyme. She put a hoof to her forehead. There had once been a much shorter unicorn horn there. Now there was an almost twice as long alicorn horn. Cursed alicorn, Celestia muttered to herself. Her kind had been considered almost like demons back when she was still a unicorn. The ancient civilization of alicorns, the fourth race, the cursed destroyers of the land, and who did not even consider other ponies living beings. She had never known the alicorns of old, but heard stories about them from her mother when she was still a foal. According to her, they had been a race of supreme magic users who had hunted other ponies for sport, waged wars just for the sensation of the fight alone. She remembered the enraged face of her grandmother, who had banished her from the family's house after her transformation. The fearful faces of unicorns that looked at her when she was passing through the street of Unitopolis. Ponies she had considered her friends had started to avoid her. For Luna it had been even worse. She did have so many friends, who now mostly avoided her as well. Luna had never heard the stories her mother had told her. Their mother had died before she had been in the respective age. She did her best to shield Luna from the hateful gazes from former friends, but it had been never enough. Eventually her baby sister had found out about it, which made it even worse for her. Alicorns were burdened with prejudice. Even so, the sisters had done nothing wrong. Even today, Celestia assumed that they were mostly asked to reign out of fear of their power. In the beginning of their reign, most ponies had feared them. Only about 2 generations after they had been crowned, the ponies of Equestria had begun to appreciate and love them. The rhymes about cruel and war-waging alicorns dismissed as the ponies now saw that the sisters ruled fair and kind. With a reluctant hoof she touched the necklace she wore, the 7th element of harmony, the alicorn element. The one thing that most likely was responsible for her and Luna's transformation. It was the one thing she would never surrender to the new bearers of the elements. Even though she had made Cadence and Twilight fellow alicorns, they would never have to endure the curse she and Luna did. The elements worked just fine without it, and the last thing Equestria needed were more emotionally unstable alicorns. A knock on her door pulled Celestia out of her memories. "Come in," she said, and in came Moonsinger, accompanied by Guard Captain Goldshield. While the captain bowed respectfully, the unicorn wore an expression of annoyance and impatience. "Your Majesty—" "Celestia, we are already late. Every pony's just waiting on you, so why are you still in bed?" Goldshield threw a disbelieving glance at Moonsinger, but didn't dare to speak out her irritation. She was Princess Luna's daughter after all, so even if she did not bear Pegasus wings along with her horn, the mare was still part of the royal family, which she had sworn to protect. But it was not easy not to lose her temper around the new princess. She was usually in good humor around Goldshield, but usually got pretty sour when it came to Princess Celestia and her plans. She obviously regretted having allowed the princess to help in the planning. Ever since Princess Luna got captured 2 weeks ago, she and her squad had worked hoof in hoof with the new enforcers. It was important to train the many volunteers from all over the garden, and it couldn't hurt to have the guard train some of them. "I'm sorry, Moonsinger. Please wait a moment. I will be right with you." "About time, if you ask me. I'm not used to going out during the day, and I would prefer to hit the sack instead of venturing through the forest to Ponyville." "Let me remind you that it was you who insisted to come along. I have to reassure my little ponies that everything is going to be fine. Also, a personal visit from me may raise their morale. How is the training of the new volunteers going, Goldshield?" Celestia inquired while getting ready. Your Majesty, the volunteers' progress is astonishing. In the last few days we have held sparring matches against them, and I am ashamed to say that we lost each one. They learn fast, and with a determination I have never seen in any pony else." Moonsinger turned to the still kneeling Goldshield and frowned. "Well, of course they do. Why do you think so many came? It was because we sent out word that our dear mother is in danger. Hadn't we put up an age limit, even teenagers would have tried to enlist. Rule number 43. If you have a task ahead of you, study as hard as you can to accomplish your goal." While the two mayors began an argument that was not just studying that was needed for the upcoming battles, Celestia's gaze fell on a book Moonsinger had provided her with. "Mother's Rules with Examples and Explanations" was written on the cover. Celestia had read it eagerly, wanting to know more about the laws her sister had laid down. The realization had made her shiver. It was an altered version of the Unicorn Republic's Code of Honor for high-ranking officers. Some of the rules were still the same, while others had been altered in content and meaning. Most, on the other hand, had only been altered in wording. Rule number 3 came to mind. In the original it had been, "Dispose of an enemy quickly, so he doesn't have the chance to stab you in the back." While Luna's version of it was more fitted for her children, she put quite an emphasis on the fact that only bad ponies made others suffer. This was like a red string through all her rules. These ponies had, without knowing it, held up the ideals of the Unicorn Republic she had once served. It was painful to admit it, but the strict ways of the Republic may now come in handy for her own cause. Once ready, the three departed for Ponyville. A strange nervousness struggled in Celestia's gut the closer they got to their new forward base. As they reached the settlement, Celestia saw ponies left and right, building barricades and fortifying the town, all under the instructions of Luna's children, who had more experience with the changelings than any of them. She had feared that they would reign over her ponies with an iron hoof, but they seemed to get along fine. She saw ponies from both factions talking to each other and even laughing. The happy atmosphere could almost make her forget that she would have to lead these ponies into battle. As the first of them noticed the approaching alicorn, they bowed respectfully. At least her subjects did. Luna's children mostly nodded to show they recognized her, or waved a hoof in greeting. Mayor Mare galloped through the streets of Ponyville. Word had reached her that Princess Celestia herself was in town, and no pony had cared to give her a warning. The town was in no shape to house royalty at the moment, nor at any point in the near future. As the princess came into view, talking with some ponies, she was already out of breath. Bowing before her, the mayor was more than ashamed of herself. "Your Highness, what an honor it is for you to grace us with your presence. Had you let me know beforehoof, I would have been able to prepare something for you." "It is okay, Mayor. I don't want you to waste any of the available resources on my behalf. A feast is the last thing we need right now." "But, Your Highness—" Now, Celestia tried to calm the nervous mare. "There really is no need for you to be this nervous. I'm just here to see how preparations are going." "We have made great progress, Your Highness. The barrier is kept in place by several of our unicorns in turns. The fortification efforts are going smoothly, and Baltimore has sent us some engineers to help constructing a wall around the town." "Baltimore? But I thought—" Celestia looked at Moonsinger, who couldn't keep a grin off her face. "You remember that time when you couldn't find me for 3 nights in a row? Well, guess where I was." "You didn't, without consulting with me first." "Oh, come on, as if it would hurt your cause. The battle was over in less than an hour, and our losses were kept at a minimum. Even so, they tried the same thing they did here in Ponyville, but Frostmane has learned her lesson from her near defeat here." "How many enforcers did you sneak out from under my nose?" "First of all, I didn't sneak any pony out. We left the barrier during night time, when you usually are asleep, and we were about 50,000. "You took untrained volunteers into battle?" "Not really untrained. They had already absorbed their basic training with your guards." "How many casualties?" 30,000 changelings, which is only a rough estimate. We didn't bother counting. Several injured, some heavily on our side, and about 200 dead." "Had you—" "No, Celestia, remember our agreement. You are a mere consultant. Even if you had planned the whole thing, it couldn't have run smoother." "Explain your methods." "I don't have to justify my actions towards you, Celestia, but I will tell you this. The changelings aren't the only ones who can use transformation magic." Celestia's eyes narrowed. "But that's But she did not finish her sentence. Celestia had noticed the confused look on the mayor's face, seeing how casual Moonsinger was speaking to her. She addressed the mayor instead, but giving her niece a glance that promised they would talk about this later. "I think I must introduce my niece to you. She's my sister's adopted daughter." The mayor gasped and turned her bow to Moonsinger now. I am honored by your present, Princess. May I be so bold as to ask your name?" Moonsinger frowned. She did not desire any pony to bow to her, nor was she comfortable with the military behavior her new enforcers were taught. Ranks and royalty had never meant anything in the garden. All this was threatening to gnaw away the foundations of her home. She sighed. It couldn't be helped. Rule number 10. A promise is a promise, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. She guessed that, as long as she was here in Equestria, she would have to put up with being called a princess. "My name is Moonsinger. Please rise, it makes me feel strange." The mayor sprung to her hoofs immediately. She was certainly uncomfortable with the thought of making royalty feel strange. It was then that the mayor's muzzle dropped and her eyes widened. As Moonsinger followed her gaze, she saw that the other mayor was looking at her cutie mark. This was a complication that she had expected. Those ponies never had seen her or heard of a pony that was not an alicorn that shared a princess's cutie mark. "Please, this is nothing. Please don't assume—" "So we have to thank you for the past nights, Princess Moonsinger?" the mayor asked, once she had regained some of her composure. "Not really. My special talent is—" "It was me who raised the moon in my sister's place," Celestia interrupted. Either she did not want Moonsinger to talk about her special talent in public, or she tried to get the attention back to more pressing matters. Either way, Moonsinger was grateful for it. Even most of her brothers and sisters did not know her special talent, and she didn't really want to discuss this with a pony she had never met before. "Anyway, Mayor, we need information, mostly about the volunteers from Ponyville and the current supply situation. Can you provide the respective documents and bring them to the library? I think Twilight would not mind if I use her house while I am here." Of course, Princess, but you might want to know something else first." "Which would be?" Moonsinger said, stepping forward, looking concerned at the mayor's urgent tone. "The barrier, it only keeps the changelings out. Yesterday we found Spike, collapsed just behind our borders. He has apparently escaped the changelings when he was separated from Princess Twilight and the other elements of harmony. According to his story, he has been on the run ever since. He had no other place to go, so he made his way to Ponyville, which took him almost 3 weeks on foot. The poor little guy has locked himself in his library, crying over his friend's fate. I think he's blaming himself for not staying and fighting." Moonsinger's eyes began to glow as she once again lost control over her emotions. She stomped a hoof so hard on the ground that it disappeared several inches into the asphalt. "That coward left behind his friends and ran for his own life? That is—" Celestia laid a hoof on Moonsinger's shoulder to calm her, while the mayor was reminded of the time Princess Luna had come to Ponyville on Nightmare Night. She was cowering in fear of that new princess, and the feeling was the same she had felt back then. "Moonsinger, Spike is no pony. He is just a baby dragon. I can only imagine how terrified he must have been during the initial attack on Canterlot. I'm sure he himself would have loved to fight to the end if he had the strength or the courage to do so. My student, Twilight Sparkle, is a big sister to him after all." Slowly Moonsinger calmed down. Twilight Sparkle? She knew that name. Her thoughts drifted off to a day almost 10 years ago. Back then, she had been on her way to Ponyville to sell some of the products the garden offered. They couldn't produce everything on their own, so they had to venture out sometimes to trade with the daylight ponies. She remembered that she had seen a timber wolf chasing something through the bushes, but didn't really care to investigate. Only when she had heard the scream of a filly, she had thrown the basket she had carried aside and hurried to the place the scream had come from. The scene she would never forget. A little lavender unicorn filly with a purple and pink mane was cowering at a rock wall. There was nowhere for her to run, and she seemed to be too young to know any defensive magic. The filly was crying in fear, and it almost tore Moonsinger's heart out to hear that sound. She had lost her control back then, and then used all her strength to attack the predator. The fight had been over quickly, and the timber wolf fled after only a few seconds. Most of the forest predators knew that it was a bad idea to mess with the children of the night. Moonsinger had then tried to console the filly, to no avail. She just wouldn't stop crying. All she had been able to get out of her had been her name, and that she had entered the forest on a dare. Moonsinger smiled at the filly as gently as she could, and levitated her on her back. She did it the same way her mother had done it with her so many years ago. The young one did not yet have her cutie mark, but Moonsinger did not care for such things. What had mattered to her had been that the filly had calmed down once on her back. By the time she had brought her back to the frantic caretaker from the magic kindergarten group visiting Ponyville, the filly had been fast asleep. In the end, Moonsinger had not sold a single thing. She had forgotten her baskets in the forest and hadn't been able to find them later. A smile played around her muzzle. So she had become Princess Celestia's personal student in the end. She turned to Celestia. "Is that Twilight Sparkle a lavender unicorn with a two-toned mane and tail?" Celestia looked shocked, but recovered quickly. Yes, she is. Well, she is an alicorn now. I would like to see her again." "You know her?" "It's a boring story, but in short, yes, I do." Okay, everypony, this was chapter 11. And, well, after editing this, I will go and record chapter 12. Hope you enjoyed this. Sincerely yours, Visual Pony.